Hello everyone and welcome to Study IQ English. I am Joycey Joy. In this video, we'll be discussing about the recently repealed farm laws in India. Let's first see what were the three farm laws that was introduced in the parliament. The first one is Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Act of 2020. Second one, Farmers Empowerment and Protection Agreement on Price Assurance and Farm Services Act of 2020. Third one was Essential Commodities Amendment Act of 2020. So these are namely the three bills introduced in the parliament and then which on a later stage got repealed from the legislation. So let's see which are they. First one, the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Act of 2020. The objective of this act was to make agricultural produce trade outside the existing APMC mandis. We know that APMCs or agriculture produce market committees are established under various state laws. So APMCs function under the state law or the state legislation. Various state governments legislate on creating APMCs in their respective states. Now, one of the important drawbacks of APMC is that a farmer who is registered with an APMC is not allowed to sell his or her produce outside the mandi, outside the market mandi. Mandi established under the APMC. So the first act was to give an amendment to this provision that the farmers who are trading in the APMC or selling their produce in the APMCs are also allowed to sell outside the mandi. Second is Farmers Empowerment and Protection Agreement on Price Assurance and Farm Services Act of 2020. So, second act, the goal is to establish a legal framework for contract farming. That is to legalize contract farming. We know that contract farming is a pre-harvest agreement where the farmer and the second party, it can be a trader, it can be a wholesaler, a food processor or an industrialist, the buyer and the seller, where the seller is the farmer who agrees or comes into a contract, who draws a contract between them to sell the commodities, the farm commodities on a specified date, on a specified price and for such specified quantities. So contract farming is a pre-harvest agreement. Pre-harvest agreement between the buyer and the seller. Third is Essential Commodities Amendment Act of 2020. Cereals, pulses, oilseeds, edible oil, onion, potato are among the items targeted for removal of the list of essential commodities. Why? Because if a commodity is put under Essential Commodities Act, the price of such commodities cannot go more than a particular limit. This is to ensure that there is adequate supply of these commodities and these commodities, as they are essential, are affordable for everyone. This is to ensure the affordability. In the third legislation, that is the Essential Commodities Amendment Act of 2020, we will see that certain horticultural items or agricultural commodities were proposed to be taken off from the Essential Commodities Act so that there is enormous supply of these commodities and the prices of these commodities does not go beyond a certain threshold. This is to make sure that it is affordable. Now, these commodities will not be included in the list of essential commodities. Why? Because if they are included in the essential commodities list, then the farmers would be facing a price loss. So the farmers would face a price loss and they will reduce the production of these commodities. So that's why the third amendment or the third law aimed at removing certain agricultural commodities off the essential commodities list. Now, what are the reasons for passing the law, or what was the intention behind these laws? The reforms in agricultural marketing, the subject that falls under the authority of state governments, have been long overdue. We know that agriculture and agricultural marketing comes under the state list. Under the constitution, we have three lists, namely the union list, the state list and the concurrent list. And all other residual subjects falls within the jurisdiction of the union government. Now, The state list gives a list of subjects for which the state governments have the exclusive jurisdiction to make laws or pass laws regarding those subjects. So, the reforms in the agricultural marketing, since they come under the state list, different states have made legislations or laws in this regard differently. So there is no uniformity. And apart from that, many state governments have not taken any action on that, which means the issue of agricultural marketing in India is long overdue for now. First problem is lack of uniformity. Second one is inaction of the state. In the early 2000s, the centre raised the matter by urging state legislatures to reform their APMC Act. In 2000, the central government passed the Model APMC Act, and the purpose of the Model APMC Act was to help the states to achieve a uniform target or to achieve a uniform legislation in APMC laws. But many states did not follow it. So, Model APMC Act, even though proposed by the central government, it was not very effective in many states. In 2003, the Agriculture Ministry of the then government created a Model APMC Act and sent it to the states. These reforms were pushed by the subsequent government as well. Because it's a state subject, the centre has limited success convincing the states to adopt the Model APMC Act. See, agriculture and agricultural marketing is a state subject. So the central government was not successful in convincing the states that adoption of APMC Acts would be helpful. In this context, the government passed these legislations in an attempt to reform the sector. So it was in this context that the central government had passed or had proposed these laws or legislations, because the states did not acted upon the advice of the centre, and central government did not have much jurisdiction in these subjects. Now we'll see that many farmers across the country protested against these farm laws. What were the reasons behind this protest? First one, repeal of farm legislation. First demand of the farmers were to repeal these farm laws, 3 farm laws. The farmers' organizations first and foremost demanded the repeal of the 3 new farm laws. Why? The farmers claim that the law is framed to benefit big corporates seeking to dominate Indian food and agriculture industry, and it will reduce the farmers' negotiating strength. See, contract farming or removing commodities from the Essential Commodities Act, all these were aimed at helping the big farmers or the corporate farmers. This was the side taken by the farmers, because in India majority of the farmers are small and marginal farmers, and their farm holdings are very less and the production is also very less. So they were confused whether they would be able to participate in such a huge setup. Big private enterprises, exporters, wholesalers and processors may also gain an edge. So they argued that it would be helpful for the large corporates or for the MNCs or farm corporates rather than small and marginal farmers. Second problem is regarding the provision of MSP. Second demand is for the provision of MSP to ensure that the crops are procured at a suitable price. We know that MSP is the procurement price paid by the government on 22 agricultural crops. Farmers are also seeking a written promise in the form of a bill that the MSP and the conventional food grain procurement system would continue. Farmers' organizations want APMC or Mandi system to be safeguarded. Next is Electricity Amendment Bill. Farmers' third demand is that the Electricity Amendment Bill be repealed, as they believe it will prevent them from receiving free electricity. Electricity is a major input for agriculture in India, and in many places electricity is subsidized. Electricity for agricultural use is subsidized. So the next fear of the farmers was that the farm laws would repeal the provision for subsidy on electricity. Farmers are demanding MSP in accordance with the Swaminathan Commission's recommendations. According to Swaminathan Commission report, the government should increase MSP by at least 50% over the weighted average cost of production. So, according to the Swaminathan Committee, the government should give MSP at least 50% higher than the average cost of production for the farmers. The C2 plus 50 formula is another name for it. And C2 stands for imputed cost of capital and land rent plus 50%, which means that the margin of farmers should be at least 50%. Now, let's see what is the impact of repealing the law. The repeal emphasizes that any future attempt to restructure the rural agricultural sector will necessitate a far broader engagement, not only for better reform design but also for wider acceptance. We know that the farm sector in India, the agricultural sector in India is very vast. More than 50% of India's population is engaged in agriculture. Rural economy in India is predominantly agrarian in nature. Considering all these facts and figures, it is a signal to the government that any future law in the agricultural sector or any future legislation bringing up in the agricultural sector will need a wider consensus and a broad discussion. The government would be hesitant to pursue these reforms instead mode again if they are repealed. And government will have to tread carefully on the path of reform. That is, the government should be very conscious when government introduce such kind of reform measures. Given the small size of average holding, as we said, there is a lot of fragmentation of land holding in India because of its population, because of historical reasons. Many farmers have turned up into small and marginal farmers. Farmers' income cannot be greatly boosted unless they pursue high value agriculture, which necessitates the infusion of private investments in logistics, storage, processing, e-commerce and digital technology. See, the farmers' income in India is very less. Why? The first reason being that they are small scale farmers. Second one is that they have to pursue high value agriculture, that is commercial agriculture. And the majority of farmers in India still do only subsistence agriculture. So commercial agriculture needs to be promoted. And for promoting commercial agriculture, it's very important to make investments in this sector. And government is not in a position to make huge investments because of the deficits and also because of the fiscal limitations of the government. So it's very important that we invite the private sector to make these investments in this sector. This sector without a doubt is in desperate need of reforms. Definitely agricultural sector needs reforms. We have made reforms in all other sectors. Now agricultural sector is one large sector of the economy which is awaiting reforms. Both in terms of output and input marketing, including land lease markets, direct benefit transfer, etc. Now, negative impact on industries. Because they were meant to be direct beneficiaries of these laws, industries including logistics, cold chain, agri-related would be most affected. See, if these farm laws were implemented in the country, the industries would have been the direct beneficiaries of these farm laws. Next is agri-GDP. See, if you see the agri-GDP, that is a contribution of agricultural sector towards the overall GDP of the country. The growth, that is GDP growth of agricultural sector is 3.5% per year. This trend is expected to continue. Slight fluctuations in agri GDP may occur depending on rainfall pattern. So this is the average annual growth rate. Cropping patterns will continue lopsided in favor of rice and wheat. Why? Because these are two commodities for which the government is giving high MSP. And this has resulted into excess of production of rice and wheat and thereby excess procurement by the FCI, Food Corporation of India. And then this leads to wastages and leakages. So that's it about the farm laws which were recently repealed by the government. We'll be meeting again with another video. Thank you so much for watching. I wish you all the very best.